probably have to run and let him in. But
yeah, that's fine.
Pretty quick.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this evening. If you're going to give us just a few more minutes, we're on a little bit early just so we can do some technical stuff, but hang with us and we'll be live in 3 minutes.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah. Oh, nice. You just started the watch party on the Bourbon Club, so.
Yep, and I've got it started on our group page.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
I need to start bringing some music online.
You just started the watch party on the Bourbon Club, so.
Cool. Yep. I've got it started on our group page.
Where's that at?
Now you may want to mute your club, or there is a little bit of a lag, so you'll hear it.
Yeah, it is.
hold on, I gotta find the microphone.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're good.
No, it's not the microphone.
I don't think it's picking up. Shouldn't be, but yeah, you can turn it off. Should be on your mute. There it is. That's your volume. No, that's your. I don't hear it now. Well,
You should.
Yeah.
You're probably okay.
okay.
Okay, 7 o'clock. Let's roll them. Y'all ready?
Yep. Yeah, we'll get started.
So everyone, thank you for joining us this evening. Welcome to back to Community Arts of Bellevue's Live from the View, our series. This is our live stream virtual show that we started pulling together back in April. It's been our response to the pandemic. Back in the good days, we were doing great shows at World Music and Live from the doing the Round series. But right now we're doing some business shows, so we can still maintain contact with the community, but also this is great because it's a great opportunity to highlight some great stuff that's happening in Bell Vegas. I like to call it. Doing these shows also supports the mission of Community Arts of Bellevue, which is, I'm going to kind of read it to you, which is creating, promoting, educating, and uplifting the arts and the cultures of Bellevue, the West Nashville area, and beyond. So that's what we're here to do. And so with us this evening, I want to welcome three really, at the moment, two gentlemen. A third one's going to be joining us in just a little bit. So you got David Salyer, Jamie Wadkins, and Chris Yao, who's going to be joining us. These guys have got quite an impressive resume in the bourbon world. This is the art of bourbon and whiskeys. So that's kind of our new series we're also starting is the art of. And so this one tonight is going to kick us off with the art of bourbon and whiskeys. And not many people know more about.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Nobody knows a whole lot more about that. I can mute you. I have all kinds of powers over here. So not many people have, not just guys. If Lee Jones is on there, she would kick my butt for saying that one. Not many people have the depth and width of bourbons and whiskeys that these two are going to bring to you tonight. And it's going to be a fun show. And I hope you will kick back. I hope you've got a cocktail going on your own of your choice or whatever that might look like, be like, taste like. I, for one, have my red wine going, so I'm being a little anti, but I'm not really. I'm here to support this show all 1,000%. Matter of fact, I may become a bourbon or whiskey drinker after this. So, okay, I'm going to unmute. And Chris is joining us now. Hey, Chris, thank you for joining us. Glad you made it.
It was a struggle, but we're here.
Great.
It's better late than never. So thanks for showing up. We were only live for 3 minutes, so that's good.
Not bad.
Not bad. So
We always know how to give time for late driver enters kind of thingies going on. So anyways, guys, with that being said, I'm going to bow out now. I'm going to turn the show over to you guys.
All right.
So I will be here. I will kind of guide. So anyway, audience, if you have questions or comments or anything, please put them in the comment box. I'll be sure to see them. We can answer questions as we're moving along. I know Jolie has one question she's going to be asking, so that one's in the bank. And we'll go from there. I'm bowing out. Have a great show. If you need me, I'm right here.
All right.
all right, thanks.
So I'm David Salyer, and I've actually not been into bourbon nearly as long as Jamie. I'm not sure about Chris. This is the first time I met Chris. How you doing, Chris?
That's me, man.
So I've actually, my first bourbon I ever tasted was just about 4 years ago, and then just kind of casual. And then a little over a year ago, Jamie had me over for a tasting, and kind of my whole bourbon world exploded at that point. And so I have actually taken 3 courses through Whisky University, and so I'm kind of on the low level Whisky University. Let Jamie talk a little bit about him, and Chris, you can introduce yourself too.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jamie Wadkins. I've been drinking whiskey, probably since I was maybe too young to drink. I'm not going to say how young I was, but anyway, I've been drinking whiskey a long time. Really got into bourbon maybe, 4 or 5 years ago, and then really got just stupid deep into bourbon about probably 3 years ago. So sort of been hooked ever since. And thanks to Whisky University, I found out some information about those guys a couple of years ago, and that's actually how I met Chris. And I'll go and let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Chris Yao. I have a master's degree from Whisky University.
As I do as of about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
yes,
awesome. So it's kind of like you guys. When I was younger, it was more like, hey, I'm just going to shoot this Jim Beam or shoot this Jack Daniels and go on with my life,
sure.
right? But after you meet some people who might know a little bit about the bourbon or the Tennessee whiskey or whatever, you start understanding a little bit about it and really getting into it. And it was probably about 4 years ago myself that I joined Whisky University and gotten to a point where I really started enjoying more about the taste and the history, and it really was pretty cool. Yeah. So I'm just like you guys. We're all about the same level, but I've been doing it for about 4 years now too. So it's really fun.
Excuse my ice maker in the background is making ice. So sorry about the background noise. It'll stop here in just a second.
We are in Jamie's bar down in his basement, and many people have said this is the best bar in Bellevue, and it definitely is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. Put a lot of work into the bar and the whiskey selection down here, and this is sort of my, I guess my home away from home. I don't have to go very far to go to the bar. I just sort of come down the stairs, and I don't have to drive, so I can crawl up the stairs. I can sleep down here if I need to. I can, not saying I've ever done that, but
he has.
Yeah, okay, really, I have. Absolutely, I have.
It's a lot of fun though. When you get into whiskey and you meet people like Jamie who really enjoy it, it's a joy, because the thing about Whisky University is that it's you said, I saw someone's comment that they didn't know there was a Whisky University. It's based actually right here in Middle Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And that's the cool thing about it is you kind of just got to know somebody who knows somebody. And I just happened to start working at the company with the guy who founded it. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, one thing led to another, and here I am. So, not knowing there's a Whisky University, don't feel bad. You're probably among 99.9% of the rest of the world.
Right.
Yeah, and it's funny. When I was getting more into whiskey, I was looking for information online. I was thinking, how can I learn more about whiskey and bourbon, and just how it's made, who makes it, what the differences are. I got on Google and I typed in whiskey schools, whiskey degrees, and you know what the first thing that popped up was Whiskey University. And I said,
Yeah.
where's this crazy place at? It's probably in California or something. And when I clicked on the link, I had to pick my jaw up off the floor because it was in Columbia, Tennessee.
Right.
You're
And
like,
I
I know
couldn't
that
believe
place.
that. And I said, oh, that's just down the road. So that's sort of how I got roped in. And, you know, there are other, I think, whiskey degrees, like, for example, in Kentucky, there's Moonshine University. But what they teach you basically is how to distill whiskey, where Whiskey University is more about the history and the tastings, which is the best part, is you learn the history and the tasting. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through some very basic information about all the different whiskeys, and we're going to try them. So if any of you guys have whiskey at home, hopefully you'll drink along
Right.
with this.
Well, and if they don't, you know,
and if you don't, you'll be
can
really
actually go out-
jealous.
yeah, but they can go
wish
out
you
and
were
get.
here.
You can go out and get them. So
You
we'll
can
be
go
able
out and
to,
get 'em,
you'll
yeah.
be able to see what we're tasting tonight.
Yeah.
And you can go out and get them. Because I was talking to Jamie about, you know, when I first started into the store, I said it was intimidating, because when you're a kind of a newbie into the bourbon world and you walk into that store, there's just so many bourbons. It's just wall of bourbons.
Where do you
And-
start?
Right. You have no idea what you're looking at. You don't know anything about it. You don't know what tastes good. And of course, taste is always, you know, everybody has
It's
their own
relative.
taste. But
Sure.
still, like,
Absolutely.
you know, it's that whole, you know, concept of, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. And really getting into the tastings and having, you know, and getting relationships and friendships. And it really kind of takes away that intimidation, which allows you to go in and you know what you're looking at, you know, and so that just changes everything, I think.
Well, you walk into the whiskey aisle at, say, Red's here in Bellevue, and you have, you know, there's more than one aisle. There's, you know, there's the Tennessee whiskey, and then you go over, and then they've got the rye in a different section, and they've got the bourbon in a different section. But then if you go to the back display, then they have all their barrel picks, and people are like, what the heck's a barrel pick? Why is this one so special? And why does this one have Red's logo and their name all over it, you know? And, you know, a lot of people don't understand, you know, what a barrel pick even is. And then they have another section, which is all Scotch and Japanese whiskey.
Right, yeah, they got
and,
Canadian, you got
Canadian whiskey.
Irish whiskey.
So
I mean,
and I can see where it can be a little bit overwhelming.
And 30 years ago, if you drank whiskey, you were a bum,
Absolutely.
which is wild to me. I mean, now it's, you know, other than Scotch back then, you know, anything other than Scotch 30 years ago, you didn't drink unless you were, you know, on the street.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
It's wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your grandparents, you know, I'm not going to give my age away here. Of course, most of you people already know how old I am anyway. But anyway, my parents, you know, they didn't want to drink. You know, there wasn't a lot of whiskey drank in my family. Yeah, none of that was the thing. I mean, my mom liked vodka. That was her thing. You know, vodka was the cool thing to do. And when I was a young man, the first thing I can remember drinking was vodka. I didn't initially like anything other than maybe a little Jack and Coke. You know, the thought of sitting down and drinking whiskey neat was, you know, that would have never entered my brain. I would have thought, why would I do that? I want a cool mixed drink or a cocktail or a vodka.
Back then, it would have been trash anyway.
It would have been trash. You know, you're right. Whiskey's changed a lot. There's been some consistent ones over the years, but it's changed a lot. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about whiskey. And I'm trying to go through some notes here. Only Kentucky bourbon. Yeah.
Well, you know,
unfortunately,
like they say,
Yeah.
you know, 95% of the world's bourbon is made in Kentucky, and the rest is counterfeit.
counterfeit, pretty much. So,
It's counterfeit.
although interesting fact, 49 of the 50 states actually make a bourbon. The only state that doesn't have its own bourbon is Hawaii. So, believe it or not, there's a bourbon that's made in Alaska.
Because the only rule is it doesn't have to be made in Kentucky. It has to be made where? In America.
Which we'll get to that in just a second. So the basic, I guess, little whiskey basic knowledge here, the actual word or term whiskey goes back centuries from a Scotch Gaelic to medieval Latin, meaning it's called the water of life. So
And what was the word?
what was the word?
What's the word? The Gaelic word.
Oh, I don't remember. What is it?
Whisky Betha.
You know, that was in the notes I saw today, but I had no idea how to pronounce it. So,
Whisky
I knew.
Betha.
I'm so glad you're here because I knew you would know that. So,
And see,
Let's
I
see
know
here.
that it's the water of life, but I had.
That's what it translates.
Yeah.
Whisky Betha translates to
Right.
water of life.
yeah, absolutely. So,
And I agree completely. Just FYI, I agree. It is the water of life.
gotcha. So what qualifies a spirit to be a whiskey? It has to be made from a fermented grain. It has to be still below 190 proof. It has to be put in an oak container and bottled at a minimum of 80 proof. So if it's bottled lower than 80 proof, technically it can't be a whiskey. Not even a flavored whiskey. In fact, the lowest bottled whiskey, the lowest proof bottled whiskey, I think is Fireball. Is that right? So I know there's a lot of people that like to shoot Fireball, and there's a reason you shoot that stuff because nobody wants to sit around and sip on it. It's not me. You can get pretty creative making some shots with it, but we're not gonna do any Fireball tonight. I'm gonna do you guys all a favor.
This is a respectable.
But,
You mean we're not
show.
going to have any screwball?
We are actually. We're gonna have Screwball.
That's different.
That's different.
Fun.
That's different.
Super
So.
pumped about that.
So, in fact, tell you what, let's go ahead and try a little bit of the Screwball because this is a flavored whiskey and it is
70.
70 proof. It's so okay. So if it's not 80 proof, though, how can they call it a whiskey on the label, Chris?
It really just
Answer me
depends.
that.
So, that's one of the rules about bourbon is it has to be bottled at more than 79 proof. I didn't know that about whiskey. I don't know if it's a law
Maybe.
or if it's not definitely not a law in America. It may just be a rule, but I will tell you, most anything aged in an oak barrel is going to be called whiskey.
And technically, I don't know if this is aged in an oak barrel.
I'm sure it is. It's just
maybe.
flavored at some point.
But see, and they've also added this coloring to it, so maybe who knows?
it could be vodka for all we know.
Exactly, it technically could be. So, David, I'll let you.
It
point
does
us
have peanuts in it,
this.
according to it. So
Yeah, and this would be a good time too to talk about the glass. And I didn't realize how important the whiskey or the type of glass that you use to drink your whiskey is. So
There you go.
Where's my glass? Where's my glass?
it's right here. You
Oh,
go,
there's
sir. So
Yeah.
this glass, this is called the Glencairn glass. It's similar to a wine glass, and I didn't think this would make any sort of difference. I thought, hey, what's the big deal with these glasses? Why are all these snooty people drinking their whiskey out of these glasses? I mean, what's the big deal? They just, I thought it was so stupid.
What is
So
that?
till I started drinking my whiskey out of it, and what's very unique about this glass is you can really nose whatever you're drinking. Now, of course, this is nothing but pure sugar and peanut butter.
I smell peanut butter.
Yeah, absolutely in this one. But to me, one of the most important parts about drinking a whiskey is the smell. That is such a huge part. If if my smell's off, if I have a cold, my whiskey doesn't taste right.
Well,
Nothing will taste right. Of course, your food won't either. But you really get it prepares your mouth and your taste buds for what you're about to drink just from the nose. So
Yeah.
And pro tip: don't close your mouth when you're sniffing this whiskey. Make sure your mouth is open so that you don't burn your nose from the ethanol.
Right. Yeah, and because especially the high proof.
No doubt, yeah, especially the high proof. But you definitely don't want to burn your nose. You just want to kind of sniff it with that mouth open, so you get kind of everything that goes through your nose, out your mouth, and you get two different kind of flavors.
And the flavor I get from this is pretty much peanut butter.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a peanut
this
butter
is
sandwich.
Peanut butter. It's actually pretty amazing. Like
How they got this to
Yeah.
taste like this from.
I love Screwball. I know
Do you
it
really?
sounds crazy, but
It's better than Fireball, though. Isn't it?
well, I would much rather drink. If I'm going to drink a flavored whiskey, this would be it.
For
But
sure.
it's because I love peanut butter.
Right.
So if you love peanut butter, this is what you're going
I
to
actually just bought all this today.
Did you?
Yeah.
So the first time I tried this, the second thing I did after I drank a little bit of it was I got a bowl of vanilla ice cream and I dumped it on there and I ate the ice cream and I let it
Really?
melt and it
Okay.
soaked down in there. And I mean,
yeah.
I loved that.
That would be pretty good.
It was actually pretty good. I was impressed with it.
Just
so.
about any flavored whiskey you can do that with, and it's gonna taste really good on ice cream.
Yeah, yeah.
because it's so sugary.
Right.
Other than Fireball, I'm not sure I would want to do Fireball on ice cream. I really hate the dog Fireball so much.
I mean, cinnamon and vanilla roll.
that's a good combination, maybe.
Cinnamon roll.
Yeah, cinnamon roll. That's a great combination. You can make some really good, interesting shots with Fireball and other liqueurs like rum chata. Do half and half on that. You could probably come up with some pretty interesting shots with this one too. But anyway,
I mean, it's
Big fan.
good.
For
I'm
flavor.
glad you didn't say you
Yeah.
hated it.
right. You know, and
I hate some of
because
those.
there are some that are just they're so sweet and they're so the flavor is so baked.
Sure.
It's just not, it doesn't taste good. Like, especially when you're drinking good bourbon. If you're drinking good bourbon and then you go to some of those flavored, it's just awful.
If you drink good bourbon and you go to Tennessee whiskey, it tastes like
That's your water, by the way. That's your
licorice.
glass of water. Okay, so moving on.
What was this one again? That was Screwball
Screwball
peanut butter.
peanut butter whiskey. Yeah, it's actually made out in California, and I think there was a restaurant company that actually made this. They were making it in house in a restaurant because I looked up the history on it, and I don't know if this was like a sheep or a goat or something on the front
It's
of
like a
it.
sheep.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Yeah.
what that is, but that may be the logo of the restaurant or something
Yeah,
like
maybe.
that. I'm not sure. But, okay.
peanut butter whiskey has really taken off. There are several different companies who are making it now, but I think Screwball has kind of become the authority.
Yeah,
Right.
no doubt.
All right. So let's move right along here. So let's talk a little bit about Irish whiskey. And there's a lot of people that like Irish whiskey. My favorite holiday is actually St. Patty's Day. I look forward to that every year. It's another great reason to drink whiskey. So to be qualified for an Irish whiskey, it must be produced in Ireland. Must be made from a cereal grain, and a cereal grain is wheat, rice, barley, oats, sorghum, corn. Any of those things can be considered cereal grains. Must be fermented by the action of yeast. Must be distilled at a maximum of 189.6 proof, and it must be aged in Ireland in wooden casks for at least 3 years. So there's an age requirement here. So if it's not aged at least 3 years in Ireland and meets these qualifications, you can't call it Irish whiskey. You can't put it on the label.
And they do a maximum instead of a minimum.
Absolutely. So tonight we're going to travel Jameson. That David so graciously picked up on the way.
Triple
home.
distilled.
Triple distilled. Get excited.
Triple distilled.
Now, guys, just so you know, we're not over here drinking, 3 or 4 ounces of stuff. This is a regulator, and this is a half-ounce regulator. So we're doing this where we don't get
About a third of a
a
shot.
third of a shot here. So, David, if you want to go ahead and I'll look at that Jameson there. And now, this smells completely different. Although I still smell just a tad bit of peanut butter in my glass, but after I got over that,
the water in there, you can
Yeah.
still
smell a little bit of the
a little bit of
peanut
peanut butter.
So one of the things, and you'll see us all kind of swirl our glasses around. When you do that, the whiskey sticks to the side of the glass, and what you see running down is what we call legs.
Mhm.
And typically, the thicker the leg or the lower that it drops is a little bit higher proof because it doesn't have as much distilled water in it. So that's
Right.
what you're going to see. You're going to see this is going to have some pretty long legs because it's going to be what, 80 proof.
Yeah, it's 80 proof.
It's 80 proof. So the legs are going to be pretty long on this. It's going to feel like water, but it's going to taste like whiskey.
Yeah.
And it's aged in barrels similar, these barrels are typically produced from bourbon barrels. They've already been used.
Right. They
once.
can reuse them.
Right. As long as they're aged in Ireland for 3 years, it doesn't matter when the barrel was made. The barrel could have been used by a
Right.
bourbon company at some point.
which a lot of
They're
bourbon
not
companies
charred.
do
Right?
that.
They're not charred,
Well,
are they?
used bourbon barrels are charred because
But I'm saying like the ones that they would typically use. In
Some of them
Ireland.
may be, some of them may
Right.
not be. It just depends.
Yeah. Well, I know that like even when I picked that up, Jameson has, some that are finished in beer.
Yes.
And so they had one for stout and IPA,
Right.
that they call Caskmates, I think is
Yep.
what they call
Yep.
it. So they had several different that you could choose from.
Now this is actually better than I expected it to be.
Yeah,
I
was thinking
expected
the
this
same.
to be
I was
not
actually
very
thinking the same.
good.
I haven't had any Jameson in a really long time.
Outside of a Jameson and 7-Up or something, I don't typically drink Jameson
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
or ginger ale. JMO and ginger ale used to be my drink,
Mm-hmm.
but
I believe that.
Are there any other
There are.
types of Irish whiskey that you like? Or
Redbreast, that's my favorite one.
I'll tell you, even even some of the stuff that you don't, it's more craft.
Right.
I say it's not the name brand, but most Irish whiskey is pretty good because it's not too harsh. So if you're
Yeah, it
looking,
is. That's
It's
true.
really
if you want to get
that's
into
true.
whiskey and you
It's
want to
easy.
start somewhere, Irish whiskey is where to
Yeah.
start neat because
Right.
it's not going to hurt you.
Right. That's true. It is. It doesn't have a lot of bite to it.
But it also doesn't have a lot of flavor.
It doesn't have a lot of
Right.
flavor, though.
Complex.
Yeah. That's and it's a much lighter. Than,
right.
I mean, some of the bourbons it's so dark from obviously being in this.
It's just not as
Charred
complex
barrels.
because they're not in charred barrels. Right.
Mhm.
That's good stuff, though. I mean,
Yeah, it's pretty
Jameson
good.
is good.
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean,
Yeah, I believe this is a blended Irish whiskey. There are actually 4 different types of Irish whiskeys. There's a malt Irish, a pot still Irish, a grain Irish, and a blended Irish. And the difference, basically, the blended is it's a blend of whiskeys made in pot still and column still. They have a pot still Irish whiskey, which is just made in a pot still, and then they have the grain Irish whiskey, which is made only in a column still.
So the blended Irish whiskey is very similar to,
Blended American whiskey.
well, it's very similar to what you would get at Willett.
Oh, Willet Distillery, because
Right, in Willett, at the Willett Distillery in Bardstown, because they use both the copper pot still, which is also a column still. So it's both.
I know exactly the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. So it's very similar
It's a
to that
hodgepodge,
in that
yeah.
way. It's the same. It's a pot still, but then it goes into a column still. So it's very similar in differences among whiskey is to everyone because every single distiller makes something unique because you have to at this point.
Right.
Because
You
can-
have to be unique.
You have to
Yeah,
find
you-
something
yeah.
different
you got to stand out.
and
Absolutely.
stand out. So that's why Willett, in 2012 when they started doing theirs, that's why they did it that way
Yeah.
because they, the Irish
Which,
heritage and
Speaking of Willet, we'll just go ahead and
Show 'em
this,
that
'cause
bottle.
This is one of the coolest whiskey bottles or bourbon bottles. This is a Willet pot still, and it's actually in the shape of a pot still. No, that's not the I Love or I Dream of Jeannie bottle. That's actually the shape. But yeah, maybe Jeannie will
So-
come out.
and
But,
what we were saying was at Willett Distillery they'll distill the whiskey in this pot still at the bottom, but this part right here at the distillery is actually a column still. So when you do it both ways, it turns out like a blended Irish whiskey.
yeah,
Interesting.
but it's not.
But they do it all in one step.
and it's way better.
it's way better because it's aged in brand new oak barrels.
Yes. So let's move on to Scotch.
Scotch.
And this is one of the most interesting whiskeys
Oh, you really know. Okay. Johnny
that you
Walker.
can have. So this is I happen to have this bottle of Johnny Walker's probably 10 years old. You can see I haven't drank very much of it. Don't remember it being very good.
I'm not a big
But,
I'm not a big Scotch fan.
Yeah.
But that being said, you and we tasted a single malt whiskey not too long ago that was pretty good that we enjoyed, and I wonder if it's just because our tastes have changed.
Oh, there's no doubt my tastes have changed
Over the years. I'm curious how you're gonna react to this.
I might actually like this.
You might.
Yeah,
And I'm,
good.
I'm really interested to see because that postmodern spirits
Yeah.
single malt barley that we bought in Granville, Tennessee.
I remember that when we went to the whiskey festival.
I have it in the car.
Yeah. Okay.
Now I have one bottle of Scotch at home, Monkey Shoulder.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's for those days when it's like you just want something a little different.
and this is very different. Why is Scotch whiskey different? Tell us.
So it must be produced in Scotland, obviously.
What?
Yeah.
Scotch.
It must made from malted barley and may contain other cereal grains as well. The sugar conversion must use natural enzymes from malted barley. It must be put into oak casks no larger than 700 liters or 185 gallons. Must be aged in Scotland in oak casks for at least 3 years. So there's another age requirement. It must contain no added substance other than caramel coloring.
So you can put coloring.
put coloring in Scotch. So you
But
can't
why?
put flavoring, but you can't put coloring.
But why?
Well, probably because it won't get a lot of the characteristics out of the barrel because the weather's so different in
The
Scotland.
weather is very,
Yeah.
very cold.
You were going to ask
and
me
wet.
that. Yeah.
So you're not going to get the same benefits of what you get in Kentucky.
Right, where
Right,
it's
so
very
it's
hot, very
hot,
cold,
right.
randomly. But here's the most important part about Scotch is the last one.
Oh, so one of the most important parts about Scotch is often is peat smoked. Where peat is put into a massive oven. It's burned underneath the malted barley. It stops the fermentation process and sending wafts of smoke up into the grains, I guess, before it's distilled. So if no one knows what peat is, I didn't know what the heck peat was.
It's just moss.
So it's moss, and apparently there's a ton of peat in Scotland.
Well, yeah,
and they
'cause
use it
it's so
for
moist,
fuel. Yeah, it's
right?
so moist.
Yeah.
And, there's no shortage of peat.
and never will be.
Yeah.
But so Scotch, the difference between Scotch and maybe an American whiskey or even an Irish whiskey is that you taste a smoky.
Yes.
It's almost like tasting a smoked turkey, where you
Sure.
or smoked
Yeah.
chicken,
Right.
where you can
That's
really
true.
get that smoke flavor. And I
Yeah.
mean, if you like barbecue and you like different types of barbecue, you probably like Scotch whiskey,
Mm-hmm.
even the cheap stuff.
And this is probably pretty cheap.
This
would be
is
my guess.
among the cheapest,
Yeah.
especially the Johnny Walker.
You have the Johnny Walker red. You have a red label, a blue label, and a black label. And I think the only difference, and I don't know, but I know the difference is the age. And I think the black label might be the oldest one, but I
It
don't
is.
know the years off the top of my head.
No. Well, so the most popular Scotch whiskey is Johnny Walker Red and Macallan 12.
Macallan, that's right.
The Macallan 12 is one that if you're gonna, if you don't know a lot about whiskey and you want to impress someone who's coming over, maybe that's the one you buy because it's kind of the one that you would see maybe in a New York law firm.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one they're going to buy and have in the decanter.
But what's the price point on that?
Yeah.
It's probably $85.
Okay, so it's
a
not
normal-
$300.
No,
but
it's
okay.
the normal, something that you would really get. That it's upper echelon, but it's not too expensive.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So the Johnny Walker Red, what is this? Is this a blended Scotch? Let's see if it says so on this bottle.
Honest to God, I'm just not a big Scotch drinker, so I couldn't tell you.
I'm just going to see if it said if it was.
Blended Scotch.
Yeah, blended right in front of my face, right underneath the word red label. So, so there's a couple of different types of, actually more than a couple of different types of Scotch whiskey. There's single malt, there's single grain, there's blended malt Scotch, there's blended grain Scotch, and then there's just blended Scotch, which is what Johnny Walker Red is. So, is it better than you remember it being, or what do you think?
Honestly, yes. I'm just not a big Scotch drinker,
Mhm.
but if if you really go into it knowing I'm gonna get this smoke, and I'm gonna, you just have to kind of get through it, and if you like it, it's not bad.
Yeah,
The first time I ever had Scotch was here, and I don't remember what you gave
it must have been that.
I know. I think it was from under here somewhere.
It would have been from there
Was
because
it
I
that?
keep that directly
Was it the
underneath
same?
there. That
Okay.
doesn't go up on the good.
Then my
bourbon
taste
stuff.
has changed too, because
Really?
the first time
Oh, that's
that
awesome.
you gave me that, I was like, it felt like it slapped me in the face.
Yeah.
It was completely different than bourbon, but that actually completely different
Yeah.
this time.
It is different because it's just not as complex. That's the
Yeah,
difference
right.
between the whiskey over there and the whiskey here, because bourbon is made in brand new charred oak barrels.
Yeah.
That's the difference, because you're going to get so much more flavor from a barrel that's never been used before.
Well, think about this too. It's so cold and damp in Scotland. How old do those
You can.
Scotch, Scotches get like what's the oldest one?
There's a 32-year-old right now.
32-year-old Scotch. So
If you had a 32-year-old bourbon,
there'd be
there would
nothing left. Yeah, it
Yeah,
would
right.
completely evaporate from the barrel. So, most bourbons, I think the oldest bourbon is 27-year Heaven Hill, actually. That is the oldest bourbon. And I don't know how many bottles they get out of that barrel, but it's not very many. It's not very many. So, and honestly, you talk about a heavy oaky bourbon. I don't know if you've ever had Heaven Hill 27. I've had it. I don't know if you've ever had it, David, but it is so oaky that it's just like you take a piece of wood and and throw it in the blender, and then you dumped it in your glass. That's sort of what this tastes like. So
interesting.
It's that's the thing I like about Scotch and Irish whiskey is that the older it gets, the more unique it gets. But I don't want to pay $200
right.
for a 30-year-old whiskey.
But let me tell you the cool thing about Scotch. You can find it. You can find
right
whatever kind you want. There's
Exactly.
no
Anytime.
allocated bottles of
That's
Scotch. I mean, maybe there's some, but if you look hard enough, you'll find them. And I've seen some bottles of Scotch that I was clueless about in stores like Total Wine and in other states and stuff, $2,000-$3,000
Sure.
retail price,
Yeah.
and even upwards of that. There's even some more expensive.
That's
ones.
crazy.
It is crazy, but
I know when I was at Reds one time, one of the guys there said, he was a Scotch drinker. And he said, I don't get you bourbon people. He said, you line up out
You
the door.
line up, you camp out, you do all
line
this
up
crazy
out the door
stuff.
to get the stuff. He
Yeah.
said, we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
And we don't have to. It's always there.
It's always
It's
there.
always there. He
You're
said,
willing to pay for it.
yeah, that's what he said. That's the difference. So you can get some really good bourbons for around $30. Whereas Scotch, you've got to jump up.
You got $100
Yeah,
minimum
so
for
that's the difference.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to Japanese whiskey.
Do we have to?
And we do. The Japanese people, and not just Japanese, Asian people in general, by the way, love American whiskey. They love it. In fact, there are some whiskeys that are made here in America that you can't actually buy in America, that they're sent overseas. So a great example of that is Blanton's. There is a Blanton's Red and a Blanton's Black, which is made in Kentucky, but you cannot buy it in America. It is only shipped to Japan.
You can only buy it in Japan.
Which
Can only
Four
buy it in
Roses used to
Japan.
do the same thing.
Four Roses actually does still have
Mhm.
a variation of Four Roses that you can't get in America. You can only buy it in Japan.
They
Wild
have
Turkey.
Japanese and an Australian.
Yeah, and an Australian version. That's right.
Mhm.
The Japanese love our whiskey. In fact,
Well, they own them.
and they own most of the
I
companies.
was gonna say they own Four Roses.
Yeah, they own Four Roses.
Jim Beam.
Jim Beam. So Beam Suntory is Japanese.
Yeah.
Who else? Wild Turkey.
That's Italian.
Yeah, not Diageo, but
That's
it's on the tip of your tongue.
the other one.
Yes, the other one. Okay. Anyway, there's
Nonetheless, Japanese people, if you ever go to Japan and you tell them you're from Tennessee, the first thing they're going to say is,
Oh yeah, right.
Jack Daniels?
yeah.
I can
They
assure
definitely
you,
are going to say that.
they love Jack Daniels whiskey.
Give me that.
But they also have started making their own, and it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, and this is one of those. This is the Yamazaki, which is a 12-year single malt Japanese whiskey. Which I don't know if you've ever tried this, David, but
I'm not sure if I've had.
I actually really enjoy this one. This one was about $100, I think.
Okay.
12 years.
My oldest
Age
son
proof.
will get Japanese whiskey on occasion, and when he does, he'll bring it over. And so I'm not sure. I have it so rare,
Yeah,
but
right.
I've had a few of the Japanese whiskeys. So
I want you to understand,
This is going to be good.
it's a product of Japan. Okay?
Yeah.
Imported by Beam Suntory Import Company from Deerfield, Illinois.
Okay.
This is made in America.
Okay. So this is actually produced in America?
It's produced in
It's
America,
produced in
but
America.
aged
in Japan.
in Japan.
So it
in
can be a
used
Japanese.
barrels.
Okay.
because Japanese whiskey follows the same rules as
Scotch, and
Scotch.
technically it has no
Okay.
legal definition, but it just follows the same rules. So I guess technically you can make Japanese whiskey anywhere. You can
As long
distill
as
it in
it's
America,
aged
in Japan.
in Japan
Got it.
for
Okay.
about 3 years.
How about that? So what do you think of the smell on this? This sort of smells like Scotch a little, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's a little sweeter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
It's a little sweeter.
It is a little sweeter.
But the difference is that it feels a little more complex than maybe
There's
a
definitely a lot
Scotch.
more going on.
There's
than Johnny
more.
Walker.
Oh yeah,
It's
Yeah.
that's not bad.
It's different.
Like,
yeah.
it is.
it's deeper.
Right, but you still don't get the all the nuances that you get from some of the bourbons.
Oh, definitely not. It's completely different.
Yeah,
But it's unique. I love it. Like
Mhm.
that's good stuff, man.
Well, I think they make an 18-year too that I can't afford. So
Dude,
This
that
was a
stuff
12, you
is
said?
pretty
That's a lot
good.
here. Yeah.
At $100, I'd buy that.
Yeah.
And it's a single malt,
Yeah. Which is crazy.
which means it's not. So single malt means that it's made from one particular grain. It's not. So typically in bourbon or American whiskey, you would be made from 3 different grains.
Japanese gin. Yeah, I've not had Japanese gin.
So gin being made from juniper berries, I'm sure that
Japanese gin's made from some crazy Japanese berry of some sort. I don't know.
I mean, it has,
It has to
gin
be
has to be
juniper
made
berries.
from juniper.
Grown in Japan or
But
distilled in
that's the
Japan.
difference
or
is that,
Japanese gin.
you know, so the difference in a lot of whiskeys, and you guys probably know this, is where the trees are grown that the barrels are made from. If there are a lot of flowers around those trees where they cut the trees down,
Mhm.
you're going to get a more floral taste.
Right.
So I'm curious if that has to do with, you know, the barrels. Where are they making these barrels? Are they
Mhm.
making them in Japan?
That's a good point. Yeah.
And that's why you get a different flavor.
Right. Because this is completely different.
And it's really good.
Yeah, it is good.
It's pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah, I've had this bottle a couple of years, I think, and haven't drank.
I actually had a
Third of
craft
it,
gin recently that we bought. I don't even know the brand, but it was a really cool bottle. It's kind of almost like a ceramic type bottle,
Sure.
and it was from North Carolina. Really good. I mean, I'm not typically gin,
Yeah.
but it's a really good gin.
Well, every now and then you'll find one.
Gin in general just tastes like pine tree air freshener.
It does. It tastes like Christmas trees. It tastes like a Christmas tree smells. I don't know.
So I'm curious how Japanese
Yeah, you got to
gin
mix it up.
tastes.
Yeah.
So whoever you were who said that you were into Japanese gin, I would be curious to taste Japanese gin. I think that's
Like to know more about
I'd
that.
love to know more about Japanese gin
Might have to do.
and what the difference
It's
is.
Glenn.
Oh, it's Glenn. So he's the guy. He's the moderator.
Glenn is the moderator tonight.
Well,
so
I think that's
we'll
cool.
talk. We can talk about that afterwards
Right.
with him.
Absolutely,
Get some
let's
info
do
about
that.
All right. So we'll finish up our Japanese whiskey and go to Chris's favorite one next. Because I know he's a big fan of what we're going to try next. So, yep, thank you, sir.
Let's do some Canadian. Let's do some character.
Canadian.
You know, I didn't think of that. We can, if you want to call it audible and
Just
change it, we
saying.
can. But I thought I would
No,
just do,
let's just do
I would do the most common one that everyone would know. So we're going to talk a little bit about Canadian whiskey, and this is obviously the most popular Canadian whiskey would be Crown Royal. Everybody knows Crown Royal. This was the second whiskey that I ever had, other than Jack Daniels. I'll let you hold that. I'll pick this up off the ground here. Quit dropping stuff. So to be a Canadian whiskey, it must be distilled in Canada. It's made from cereal grains. It must be aged in Canada in wooden barrels for at least 3 years. So there's another age requirement. Must be aged for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it can have artificial coloring, just like Scotch. And here's the kicker: they can also add any sort of artificial flavoring they want. So that's why you have all these flavored crowns that can still have on the label Canadian whiskey. And the number one selling Canadian whiskey, believe it or not, the brand is Crown Royal, but it is not this original traditional Crown Royal. It is Crown Apple.
Apple, yeah.
It's the number one.
Makes sense, I guess.
Yep, and it's great for mixing.
But even Crown itself is, I mean, it's one of the top, right? It's one of the top
Top
selling.
3.
Top 3.
Yeah.
So Do you know why Crown Royal is called Crown Royal?
See the lady.
Not.
So Crown Royal
We can just give them a close up if you want.
was
Did we just miss something? I think somebody
Yeah,
said-
somebody
see the label?
asked something.
Oh,
So Crown Royal was named because it was distilled originally for the Queen of England, the Queen and King of England
King Queen. Yeah.
came to Canada, and they made this specifically for them and just kept going because it was so popular.
now I'm going to be honest. Like Canadian whiskey has never been my thing.
Hey,
And
if you're gonna mix something, Canadian whiskey is
Yeah,
what's
that's
best.
that's
great.
probably-
Canadian Club. I don't know if anybody's a fan of Mad Men,
I like,
but you know,
yeah, Mad Men. They have Canadian Club on there.
Canadian Club was their drink of choice. You know, this is okay, but
I actually like Lord Calvert, which is another great Canadian whiskey.
Lord,
Lord
of course
Calvert.
you do, because we know about your
What?
your love for medium independent.
Oh
styles.
yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, I like Lord Calvert. I mean, that's a good Canadian whiskey. Now, there's one actually that Beam Suntory owns, and I can't remember the name of it. There's actually a bottle that's bottled in Knob Creek. The bottle looks just like a Knob
Rich
Creek
and
bottle. Maybe it's Rich and Rare, which is another Canadian whiskey. Yeah. So
That's the one that I think Beam Suntory.
yeah, that's the one Beam Suntory owns. Diageo owns Crown Royal. Is that right? Yeah, that's what I thought. So, what do you think, David?
It's pretty smooth.
Is it?
Like it's.
Does it taste like college or?
I was thinking like
High school?
Seagrams, right?
I mean,
Um,
Crown Royal is a great mixer, just like Jameson. It's a great mixer for things like 7-Up or just about anything. If you like to mix whiskey,
yeah,
do it with
right.
Canadian, Irish, or American blended.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Right,
mix your bourbon.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it. Even Jim Beam is good by itself.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of stuff where it just doesn't have a big whiskey taste anyway.
Right. It doesn't at all. Really, it's very
It's very
light taste.
light. Exactly. So this is the kind of stuff you want to use to get into tasting whiskey if you're going to do it neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. What's the proof on the?
Oh, it's probably 80.
80.
Probably 80,
Yep.
80 proof. So I'll let you have that. We've got about 15 minutes left, so we're gonna.
Well, there's no time limit. So.
Oh, there is no time limit.
No time.
Awesome. We'll be drinking all night then.
No
There's
time limits.
So
We can go over if we need to.
until we get cut off.
We get cut off. Yeah. So the bartender shuts us out. So the bar closes.
I feel like I've been cut off.
I do have the magic button over here.
He can kill us at any time.
I
Exactly.
will tell you, Glenn, I've never been cut off at Jamie's, but I have been driven home.
I feel like we all could have been at one time or another.
Probably. There's only one person that's actually fallen asleep at the bar, and that wasn't me. And I don't think he's been back over here since. So anyway, we're going to move on
There
to
we go. Yep.
Tennessee whiskey.
That's it.
So everybody
The number
knows.
one seller.
Everybody knows the number one selling whiskey in the world, which would be Jack Daniel's. It's available in every country other than the Muslim countries, I believe.
There are 195 countries in the world.
Oh,
Right.
of course you would know that.
180
Yes.
of them sell Jack Daniels.
There you go.
Yes.
That was from the last Whiskey University class.
Probably.
But yes, most of the ones who don't sell Jack Daniels are
Muslim countries which do not allow drinking of alcoholic beverages to begin with. So if they did, I would guess they would sell Jack Daniels.
Oh, no question.
So Jack Daniels is owned by a company called Brown Forman, and Brown Forman also owns other distilleries, other bourbons. Maybe you've heard of Woodford Reserve. Maybe you've heard of Old Forester.
So I'm curious if this is going to taste
Why? Because you've never had this before.
like licorice.
It's Jack Daniels. Of course it is. They all taste like licorice.
But only after you drank bourbon.
We haven't had any bourbon yet.
So I'm curious if
If it will now.
if that
Yeah.
goes, if that,
Right.
that follows through.
Okay.
Now, yeah. So I've never been necessarily a big fan of Jack. We've talked about that before. Except some of their barrel proof, like their higher end.
higher end. Like they have
Higher end,
the Frank
Heritage. The
Sinatra.
Sinatra Select. I actually
Yes.
just got a bottle of that for
Did
my
you?
anniversary.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
It's my favorite.
Yeah.
The difference there is they do that circle around the barrel.
There's these
on the
sort of
inside.
spiral circles that they carve into the barrel and they age it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that
that's
makes it a
a
little
special
different.
barrel makes it different.
Right.
You ever had that?
I have had it when I went to see the orchestra.
Okay, great.
They have it there. So
Awesome.
So the number 27 gold is aged in maple barrels.
It is.
The heritage.
That's my
barrel
favorite, other
is
than the
best.
Heritage Barrel. And do you want to talk a little bit about the Heritage Barrel?
The heritage barrel that you have is the best Tennessee
Okay.
whiskey I've ever had. in my life.
It really doesn't taste anything like regular Jack Daniels. Actually, the Heritage Barrel is a special edition that they do every year. It's considered an allocated whiskey because there's just not a lot of them.
Because it comes from the
It comes from the highest floor of Jack Daniels Barrel House, which I think is the ninth floor. I think the master distiller Jeff Arnett and then the assistant master distiller Chris Fletcher have a lot of input, I think, in selection of that barrel, and I think it's pretty special to them. And it's more than one barrel. It's not just one. I mean, it's I don't know how many they do every year. There's maybe a few thousand, but anyway, you're not going to find it on the shelf more than likely. And if you do, I would suggest you buy it. If you ever see, and if you don't like it, you can bring it over here. I'll drink it up for you. So
No question.
question about that.
Now, I will say this: Jack is is my go-to if we are downtown
Yeah.
and we're going to the different honky tonks.
I'm a squire. I'm a Tennessee squire.
Tennessee Squire. Yep.
But I love Jack Daniels whiskey.
You do.
I think it's good too.
I know that a lot of people talk a little trash about it,
Mhm.
but in general, Gentleman Jack is probably my least favorite of.
Really? Okay.
I would have Black Label over Gentleman Jack, but everything else is good. I mean, the single barrel
The barrel proof is good. Like,
and the single barrel
Barrel proof, that's
is
what's sad, yeah.
fantastic, and you can find that anywhere. If you're looking for a good Tennessee whiskey, the single barrel proof Jack Daniels, you can get it for
Mhm.
about $60, and it's worth it
Mhm.
every time. It's good stuff. But
great
even-
tour too.
But the Black Label is not bad. I mean,
No, and it's cheap.
It's cheap. It's inexpensive,
I mean,
and it's
$11 all day.
yeah, it's great. It's worth it. So let's talk about Tennessee whiskey and what makes whiskey a Tennessee whiskey. Obviously, it must be produced in Tennessee. That's rule number one.
Mhm.
The rest of the rules are pretty much just like bourbon. It must be made from 51% corn. Must be distilled at 160 proof or lower. Must be barreled at 125 proof or lower. Must be aged in new charred oak barrels,
Brand new.
brand new oak barrels. Yeah.
And here's the difference, right?
And here's the major difference: is it must be filtered through sugar, maple, charcoal before it goes into the barrel. So this additional stuff is called the Lincoln County process. This adds no extra flavoring and was intended to be a subtractive filtering process. So if you talk to a bourbon guy, from Kentucky, a lot of people don't like Tennessee whiskey, and I like Tennessee whiskey, okay, and I live in Tennessee, but there's some people that are just, they don't like bourbon because they think, you have to filter. You're filtering the bad stuff out, and you're getting all the good stuff in the whiskey. But if you're a bourbon guy, you say, oh, you're taking all the good stuff out. You're running in the bourbon.
Right?
So here's the thing: is Tennessee whiskey 100 years ago is not bourbon.
No.
Today, if they started making Jack Daniels today, it would absolutely
Be
considered
classified as a bourbon.
Because it meets all the requirements.
It meets all
because
the requirements to be a bourbon.
everyone else is doing these extra steps and still calling it bourbon. Angel's Envy, aging it in port barrels for 6 months and all these other
After it's bourbon, they
After
finish
it's
it. Yeah.
bourbon,
Yeah.
this, that, and the
Because they
other.
call it finishing.
Or
Right.
secondary maturation is what they call
So-
it. Yeah.
The point being that today, if we were talking about Jack Daniels just starting up today, it would probably be considered a bourbon.
Mhm.
But Jack was smart enough to say, hey, I don't want to be that. I want to be something different. And Jack said, you can't be Tennessee whiskey unless
That's right.
you're filtered through sugar maple charcoal. You can be whiskey from Tennessee all day
But
long.
you can't be called Tennessee
But
whiskey.
you can't be Tennessee whiskey
Right.
unless you do the Lincoln County process, because he was smart enough to know that he was the only one doing it at the time.
And when
Now,
it works, right? I mean,
when Dickel
Or
came
did it ever
along,
work?
it was a little different, but
Yeah, right.
absolutely it worked. And he was a master at, trying to figure out the unique way to make his whiskey important. He was a great marketer and did a great job making Jack Daniels the #1 whiskey in the world.
right. I mean,
And today it still is. And,
To this day.
they're still pumping out more whiskey than
and that
anybody.
because of that makes Brown-Forman one of the
The number one
Right.
whiskey distiller in the world. And funny story, Jack, they brag a lot about how much they produce.
We
Based
spill
on-
more
yeah.
than George Dickel makes in a year.
Yeah, and in a craft distillery, they'll spill more than in a day on the floor than most craft distilleries make in a year and put in the bottle. They spill in one day.
And what was the requirement for it to be a craft distillery? What was that? How many?
Oh, it has to be less than 500,
Less than 500 a year.
500,000 proof gallons a year. Yeah. To be a craft distillery,
Right.
which means Jack Daniels spills a lot of freaking whiskey and don't care.
It doesn't
And don't
matter.
care because they just keep making it. So,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
And-
So, all right, let's move on. We don't want to run out of time here, but
should have brought that postmodern spirits in.
what?
That single malt barley.
Oh my
I
gosh.
tried.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
we can do that. Let's
No.
do.
Let's
Tell you what. You want to do? We want to do a wheat whiskey, or you want to do a rye whiskey?
preferably a wheat. Because I like sweet.
We can do both. Yeah, I'm just taking for time's sake because we still got to do a couple more, and then.
Oh, okay.
You want to do rye or wheat?
Let's do the rye.
Okay.
first.
So this.
Rye is more popular than wheat.
Oh, yeah. That's
So-
a good one too.
Yeah, so there's other whiskeys that are just made from other grains. So, most of these, like for example, a rye whiskey, it's made from at least 51% of the main grain. So in a rye whiskey, obviously rye is the main grain. It's at least 51% of the main grain. This is a Woodford Reserve rye, and this is actually the Nashville Bourbon Social Club barrel pick, which I had the privilege to help select on the little tasting panel that day. So me and the Jodway family, and let's see, I believe there was Chip, and hopefully I'm not forgetting anybody else. Hopefully they're not watching this podcast because they'll be mad that I didn't mention them. But anyway, the Nashville Bourbon Social Club, can't say enough good things about all those guys. It's a great club
Oh,
to be
my
in.
gosh.
I hope that everybody that's watching this has asked to join the Nashville Bourbon Social Club. It's a great experience. Everybody in there is super nice. Nobody's gonna be ugly to you or rude. I was actually one of the founding members there with the Jodway family, and I'm a moderator on there now. And I get to help with all the barrel picks. And this is actually the apple cinnamon toast
I
crunch.
did not get this one.
You did not get
I
well.
did not get
You
it.
need to
I'm
go ahead
hoping-
and try it.
I'm
'cause
hoping that
it's
I
one-
get
it's
the,
an awesome rye.
the new Jack Daniels one. right?
That's going to be great.
That's
We just
coming
found that out
Right?
about this week. Literally, we got the news that we were going to get a Jack Daniels barrel pick.
Yeah.
And we're one of the few, like out of 3 of the whole state, that are getting it this year
Yeah.
because of the.
It's amazing.
Go ahead, Chris.
That's the
Yeah.
thing about what I
I
found
love that label.
is joining into the bourbon community
Yeah.
is the actual
The camaraderie.
yes, you actually friends.
So
Like, you actually
there-
get. I mean, it's amazing.
There are
You meet
people.
nice people.
There are people who will either hate you or love you, depending on where you
You're
are.
right.
Because there are so many who just absolutely hate the fact that you can get a certain bottle,
A certain thing, or
whatever.
Yeah.
but you know
But-
what? Those are the people I like to drink with. Because I just like to drink with everybody, even if they don't like me.
So that's the thing is, Jamie has a lot of bottles that you don't get anywhere else.
That's
That's
true.
the thing about Whiskey University is Whiskey
We-
University has a lot of bottles
Bottles you won't-
that you're never going to find.
They're
anywhere
really
else.
old too. There's some really old bottles there.
And
in Whiskey
Yeah,
University.
that's the thing about when you get to go to when you join a community like that, and you get to go to the tastings.
When everybody pulls
And
the
you get-
resources together.
Yes,
Yep.
and so you get to taste things you may never have ever been able to taste.
yeah,
Ever.
if you didn't have 30 people pitching
Yes.
in to go find it and buy it,
Mhm.
you'd never get it.
No, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
So that's what's cool
amazing.
about what we do.
What do you think of this? Do you get the apple? The sour apple? I get it on the palate. I don't really get it on the nose.
Yeah, the nose was not there. Because I'll tell you, I've been ruined by Nelson's Greenbrier
They're Tennessee.
Tennessee
Man, I
whiskey.
should have brought that out. I
Because
got one of those.
That's a good whiskey. That's
well,
a good one.
when you smell it though, it smells like nothing but Granny Smith apples.
Yeah, but it doesn't taste like
It
Granny.
doesn't taste like it, but it smells like nothing but Granny
Yeah.
Smith.
We're in Nashville. Besides Jamie's basement, do you go to drink bourbon and whiskey? Well, I'm a little biased, but I like to go to Stony River. They actually have some really good whiskey collections at Stony River. Jay Alexander's has some really great whiskeys.
So is Stony
Whiskey
River
Kitchen.
owned? Is that Jay Alexander
Yes.
and Stony River together?
So-
Whiskey Kitchen's
So-
another great place. Where do you like to go
Oh,
drink
yeah,
in
Whiskey
Nashville?
River.
I live in Franklin, and there's not many better whiskey selections than 55 South.
55 South, downtown Franklin.
Okay.
Yeah,
Downtown
absolutely.
Franklin.
I've
They
wanted
have
to
a
actually go there, but I've never
Fantastic
never
whiskey
gone.
selection, and they're Ole Miss people, and I don't know anybody who knows about SEC.
Don't talk to me about
Oh,
Ole Miss
man.
because you know I'm a Mississippi State
Right.
Bulldogs fan
But-
to the core.
So,
Anybody who
I'm
knows-
an Ohio State fan, so I'm like in the
But-
I'm in the
But
South.
if you
so-
know anything about Ole Miss, you know that they are bourbon snobs.
They
Okay.
just think they are.
yeah.
They've
But-
never been here.
But it's amazing the number of whiskeys that 55 South has. So that's where I go when I'm in Franklin.
Yeah,
But Jamie's Basement is definitely the best place in town. I can
Oh,
tell you.
yeah.
It's nowhere. There's nobody else that's got anything near what we have here.
I have some really unique whiskeys that's taken me a long time and a lot of effort to
Oh man,
get. What do you think of that? Isn't that awesome?
that is all
See,
apple.
are you a member of the
You know,
Nashville Bourbon Social Club? Well, you're
should
gonna
be.
be. You
You
need to
should
be. You absolutely need
yes.
to be because you get access to
You
our
know,
rail
another
picks.
place is pretty good. Southern Steakhouse. The Southern.
Southern
The
Trace.
Southern, yes.
Yeah, oyster and.
Oh yeah,
right there
downtown.
yeah. Because they have like
DeMunbrian and like
Mhm.
fifth or
Right.
something like that, or second.
what is that?
It's DeMunbrian
Third.
and something, and third,
Yeah.
right across from the diner.
Yeah, and because I've been there.
It's actually where I went to
they
dinner
have-
the night I got engaged.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, 2-3 years ago when I got
Okay.
engaged, that's where we went to dinner.
Yeah, I like the Southern.
They have a
great-
real,
They have some old bourbons
Yes.
out here. Like they have some really good Jeffersons
Right.
and some
And
really
I'm
old
fairly
selections.
certain my grandma was in the kitchen cooking that night because it was delicious.
Oh, and another.
Really?
we went to the Goat in Germantown,
Mhm.
and they have some really good bourbons. Like they have like Pappy Van Winkle. I mean,
Sorry, we gave you like 12 places to go.
Yeah, we
but
gave you a lot of places to go, but anyway,
you know,
yeah, you know. So this is a good
this is
ride.
a really
that
good.
is
Makes a really good old fashioned.
this right
Yeah,
here.
this would make a great old fashioned.
This doesn't have that rye bite.
It's got a
It's a little
little bit
sweeter
of a sweeter finish on the end of it. Yeah.
than the normal rye bite.
Yeah, it's really good though.
That's fantastic. Well done on that pick, sir.
Yeah, man. Of course. Anytime I pick a spirit, I do a great job. And by that,
You
I maybe
really-
only pick 3 or 4.
Seriously though, like Jamie, he gets to pick some stuff, and when he does, I'm a fan.
I don't pick bad stuff.
And
And
I
if
trust-
everybody else likes it and I don't, I'm like, okay, you guys can pick the crappy one. I don't want anything to do
yeah,
with it.
I trust Jamie. Like if they say if everybody else said it's good, and Jamie said it's bad, I probably
You're
would.
probably going to agree with me.
I'm probably not
Yeah.
gonna drink it. So and that's not a knock on anyone else. It's just I trust him, and he's delivered every single time.
My
So let's
goal is
do
to
one
that.
more.
Oh dear God.
We're going to do one more special
Whoa.
thing
Oh,
here.
dear
So,
looks like
God.
real moonshine.
so let's talk about moonshine here.
Where'd you get that?
Did you do that?
I can't say where I got it from. I get some people in trouble.
What is that? How do you join? Oh,
Oh, yeah, it's easy. You just go to the Facebook page and you ask to join and answer the questions, and we'll let you in. It's pretty easy to join.
yeah. If you just go, if you search on Facebook for the Nashville Bourbon Social Club, you'll find it.
Yeah, and while you're doing that, go ahead and like the Whiskey University Facebook page as well, and visit the Whiskey University website because you'll get a ton of information
Yes.
about distillers and
There's
whiskey
a-
founders.
So much
and
good information.
That's
There's a
the
ton of good
difference.
information about Whiskey University.
I mean, the difference between the Nashville Bourbon Social Club is more drinking it, having a good time, you're socializing.
Mhm.
But Whiskey University is more about
Learning,
learning
yeah, we're
about
all about learning.
Whiskey 101 teaches you about how it's made and why
Mm-hmm.
it's made that way. Bourbon 201 is teaching you about why. You'll have more whiskey knowledge in a month
Mhm.
than 90% of the world.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're exactly right. In fact, there's so much information on the Whiskey University websites. We've actually been referenced by several different magazines and websites and articles they'll say, according to Whiskey University,
Nice.
blah blah blah, and it's really cool when people mention us like that.
It's legit.
You know, and it might take us a while to find it. Maybe they mentioned this 2 or 3 years ago, and we're just now coming across it. But
It's amazing.
nevertheless,
Oh,
the regulator won't fit
You
that.
know
David.
what?
But let's talk about moonshine. There's really no legal definition for moonshine. It's just considered a distilled spirits specialty. Go ahead there, Chris. I know you want some of that.
No, I mean, if we're gonna drink this, we're gonna drink it like it's supposed to be drank.
No, we're not. You're gonna point
Coronavirus.
Yeah, exactly. We're not social distancing tonight. We should be wearing our masks.
That's kind of good. I like that. That's
It
That's not
smells
good.
like corn.
like yes, it's
Yeah. So moonshine can be an unaged whiskey, can be made from grain, can
Cornbread.
be made from sugar
It
sources.
smells like corn,
So
like Jiffy Mix.
yes.
yeah, sort of. So
It
you know,
does.
you can make moonshine from sugar, like from the baking aisle at the grocery store. You don't have to have
You can't.
grain. You can just go buy sugar and make moonshine with it. You can also use fruits.
Mhm.
You can use molasses, but probably my guess is this one's made from sugar. And I'm not going to say where I got it because I'm not going to get anybody in trouble.
Okay.
They might or might not live in this neighborhood.
They
But,
might or might
They
not.
might or might not live close to you. But anyway,
Okay.
All I'm
that's all I'm
saying
gonna
is,
say.
you don't want to end
And
up.
now I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
So when we're not live anymore, I need to
you
know.
need to know. Okay, maybe I can tell you that. This he gave me this. Man, I've had this a couple of years and usually keep it in the fridge, but this is one of the best homemade moonshines that I've ever
Okay,
had.
so it is
Yeah,
a legit.
this is a homemade,
this is a
legit
legit.
moonshine
This
made in the
isn't-
hills of
This
Tennessee.
isn't Tennessee or Gatlinburg, whatever.
No, sir.
Smoky Mountain.
No, sir. This is real
Or
Not
moonshine.
Old Smoky, Sugarland.
Right. No,
Yeah.
this is like in the bathtub.
Yes, sir.
Listen,
This is the good moonshine right here.
you don't want to end up on the wrong side of Gus,
Gus, who's Gus?
the guy who makes moonshine out in the woods. That's just like the normal name. It's like Bubba.
Okay.
We just call him Gus. If
Very good to know.
that's who you made it from. You don't want to end up on the wrong side of him. You definitely want
Okay, that's interesting.
to be nice to that guy.
What do you think?
I mean, that's
I don't know. I wish I could tell you what the proof is. I don't have a way to measure it. I don't have the hydrometer
oh
to measure the proof to see what it
yeah.
is.
It doesn't feel like it's
It's
like
probably-
I
super
mean, it's
high.
over. Yeah, it's probably 90. I was going to say maybe it's close to 100 proof. It's actually not too terribly bad.
But
Yeah,
it's a little smoother than I think.
It's a lot smoother than most moonshines.
that is.
would
I
be.
mean, so you think this was made with sugar?
Yeah, absolutely. This was made from sugar. I can
Um,
smell it.
Most people who make the cinnamon, apple pie, peach, butterscotch moonshines, if you know a guy, go ahead and get it. It's worth it.
If you know a guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody that makes homemade moonshine, typically, especially the flavored ones, my favorite one being the apple ones,
My
with the
favorite,
cinnamon stick and the
my favorite
apple
is
in there.
butterscotch.
Mm.
I'm a butterscotch.
What do they do? Put
Oh,
a piece of butterscotch
I
candy in it?
love
or-
butterscotch.
It tastes like, like a really good
Okay,
old whiskey.
So you know somebody that makes like in there. Okay, so we need to talk.
Okay, well, maybe you need to bring some of that
I
over.
mean, like,
well, it's in
that's
Alabama because that's where
That's
I'm from.
okay. Alabama people can make
I got to go
moonshine.
down there and like bring it back. It's a whole ordeal, but yeah,
It's a whole thing.
it's
I got it.
butterscotch. Yeah,
butterscotch moonshine. There's
Mm.
there's not much better
I mean,
for me.
Well, yeah, I think I would be very much in line with you on that. Because butterscotch for me, I think butterscotch is amazing.
Hey, I mean, I like to just suck on some butterscotch candy at
Yeah.
church from my grandma.
I mean, butterscotch is
So-
caramel. But
So, what do you think, David? Would you drink this again, or would you buy
For
this
$25 a quart, heck yeah.
I would. I mean,
for a quart?
this is
exactly.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know that I would do it a lot.
Well, one of my favorite things to do is to break that out from the fridge underneath the bar when people say, "Oh, what else you got?" Say, "Oh, how about some
Okay.
moonshine?"
I guess a homemade.
Yeah, I got some homemade moonshine. And people, they pick their jaw up and they say, "What? Where did you get that?" And of course, I can't tell them where I got it from. But
If you do,
Anyway.
you'll end up on the wrong side of
Yeah.
Gus.
right, exactly, and you don't want to piss Gus off.
And the
so.
wrong side of Gus is the wrong side of the dirt. And you don't want to be there.
That's
Okay,
probably true.
good to
He
know.
will bury your
They will
butt.
bury you. Okay, guys.
Real quick, fast, and in a hurry.
All right, so with that being done, let's move on to some good bourbon, and we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah.
So to be a bourbon, saving the best for last. Must be produced in the United States. Must be
America.
made from Must be made from 51% corn. Must be distilled at 160 proof or lower. Must be barreled at 125 proof or lower. Must be stored in new charred American oak barrels. Must be bottled at a minimum of 80 proof and must not contain any additives other than water. And they use the water to proof it down, obviously. So,
So let's go over that slowly and a little bit easier for them.
let's do it.
Let's do the ABCs.
I'm glad you brought that up
So the
because it's a lot easier to go
Yeah.
through it doing the ABCs.
ABCs of bourbon. A, it must be made in America. B, it must be aged in new charred oak
Barrels.
barrels. That's the
American
B.
oak barrels.
That's white
Technically.
American oak.
White American oak barrel. Yep.
C is it must be made from 51% corn. D is distilled proof, which, like he said, has to be distilled lower than 160 proof. E is entry proof
Up
into
to
the barrel.
Yep.
Entry proof into the barrel has to be 125 proof. F is it must be finished and bottled at higher than 79 proof, so 80
So
proof or
80
higher.
proof or higher. Yep.
And last, it must be genuine.
And by genuine, we mean we can't add anything other than water to proof it down.
So
Yeah.
Japanese,
Scotch, or
Scotch,
none of this Canadian. You cannot add any colors. You can't add any flavors. And to have the word bourbon on the label,
Because
So-
there's the corn.
it would or flavored whiskey.
right. So American charred oak barrel, 51% corn, 160 distilled, 125 entry, 80 proof finished, genuine, no additives at all. So there you go. That's the ABCs of bourbon.
So this particular bourbon, this is a wheated bourbon. So typically the bourbon mash bill is corn, rye, and malted barley. So 51% corn or higher, whatever percentage of malted barley, and then which is usually pretty small, and then the rye, which is considered the flavoring grain. We're going to do a little W.L. Weller Special Reserve. This is actually a wheated bourbon, so the flavoring grain isn't rye, it's wheat. So I know you've had this before, David. I know you like all the Wellers.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't like, what's that? Show the label again.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So this is the most basic green label W.L. Weller Special Reserve. You can probably find this over at Reds in Bellevue if you ask them for it. They actually just had some this past week, a couple of days ago. Yeah. It's about $40 for a bottle. Not very expensive, 40, 50.
If you
31,
are,
right? I think.
if you're not a big fan of whiskey and you think it's a little harsh, wheated bourbons like Weller are for you, because wheated bourbons are a little bit sweeter, because wheat is more like a bread instead of, if you like wheat bread over
Rye bread. Yeah, it's a great way to.
you're going to understand the difference. So that's where you're going to see the wheat come in. It's a little bit better, a little bit less harsh than the rye flavoring grain.
And Weller, I mean, you can't go wrong.
Well, the name W.L. Weller, everybody wants Weller. Everybody wants all the Wellers. You know, that's what everybody tries to get.
I want the William LaRue Weller.
Yes, you do.
All of those.
All of them, not just the one that comes out every year. I want everyone from every year. Wouldn't that be nice?
For about 10 grand.
For about 10 grand, that'd be great. Wouldn't it, to get them all. I only have one of those from the 2019 release, the William LaRue Weller. But anyway, so yeah, good smooth finish on this one.
Yeah.
No bite, no rye. So
The difference between this and most bourbons
This is so good.
is the second grain is wheat instead of rye.
which is the flavoring grain, right? So,
And that's the only difference.
so let's talk a little bit about what makes a bourbon a Kentucky bourbon. Now, Weller actually is a Kentucky bourbon. To be a Kentucky bourbon, it must be produced and then aged at least 1 year in the state of Kentucky to have the word Kentucky bourbon on the label. I know sometimes you guys have seen the term straight bourbon.
in order to be classified as a straight bourbon, it must be aged for a minimum of 2 years. If it is less than 4 years, it must have the age statement on the label. So if you have a bourbon that says, hey, this is a straight bourbon, but it doesn't have an age on it, you know it's at least 4 years old. But if you have a straight bourbon and it says age 3 years, it can still be called a straight bourbon, but you know it's less than 4 years old because it has an age statement on it.
You know exactly how old it is.
Yeah, you know exactly how old it is. And most distilleries now want to put the age on there anyway because it's bragging rights, right?
Yep.
The older the bourbon, the better it tastes, supposedly, or the more they can
The
charge.
longer you wait,
The longer you wait,
The more they
exactly.
better it gets.
Yeah.
That was
Exactly.
Evan Williams used to have an ad campaign that had a female that was like your wife before she gets ready, right? And after she got ready, she's got her full makeup on, her hair done. It says the longer you wait,
Ready for what?
the better it
I've
gets.
seen that.
Oh, you mean to go out? Oh,
To go
I didn't know
out.
what you meant. You
I
said
know
get
what
ready.
you're
I didn't know what
So
you're
that's
talking
the
about.
difference.
Yeah.
Is the longer you wait,
The
the
better it is.
better it
It's
gets.
the family show. Yeah, I just remember that.
That's my point.
Okay.
You're the one who brought it somewhere.
Just
else. I
saying,
didn't
this is
know.
a
I was
family
talking about
show.
going out.
So,
So far, it's
Okay.
still family.
okay, great. So some great examples of weeded bourbon are not just W.O. Weller. You can actually get other ones. Larceny is another great weeded bourbon.
Good, yeah.
Maker's Mark, man. I love Maker's Mark, and it is a weeded bourbon. And you cannot go wrong with just some plain, you don't even have to get the barrel picks, just a plain Maker's
Yeah.
Mark. I love it.
You know that
That
I
they
never,
made
you
for
know, I
years
didn't
and
like that.
years.
So, like, but you gave me another, like a different
46.
Well, maybe I gave you the Maker's 46.
Yes.
The last old fashioned I made it with Maker's
Right,
Mark.
no, yeah.
And you liked it.
No, yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I'm saying Maker's Mark is just not. It's one of those things where it's like it's not my favorite.
It's not your fave, huh?
I'm a big Maker's Mark fan because I love weeded bourbons. I like Maker's Mark. I love Larceny. Those are my favorites.
Yeah, those are great
Now,
bourbons,
Larceny, I
easy
like
to find,
Larceny.
no short shelf. And obviously the big one, Happy Van Winkle, is a weeded bourbon. There's no rye whatsoever in the Happy Van Winkle lineup. It's 100% weeded
That's the
bourbon.
reason it's so good.
It's one of the reasons it's so good. There's no bite on the end of it. It's just a nice, smooth drinking, easy drinking bourbon. So
Man, I love weeded bourbons. I really do.
yeah, they're good, aren't they?
I'm telling you,
Even the old Fitzgerald lineup, which is one of my favorite personally, is the
So-
old Fitzgeralds.
that's the 1910 and the 1920 are my two favorite bourbons in the world.
Sweet. So what do you think of this one, Chris?
Oh, this is fantastic.
This
I
is-
mean, it doesn't have a bite. It's just it's a little lighter than what you would expect from another bourbon,
Mhm.
but it's not bad.
Yeah, no, any of the Weller.
all the Weller
I mean,
families are great.
They're pretty good.
That's just the easiest one
Well,
to
you know,
find.
Buffalo Trace does it.
That is the easiest one to find. The antique is probably my favorite, but whether
That one's the second easiest one to find again. I think it's Red's had some of those this week too, actually. A lot of the liquor stores.
What was the one
That's
we had? There it is. The single barrel.
Oh yeah, the Weller single
Yeah,
barrel.
yeah,
Chris
yeah.
has not
You've
had
always-
that
I
one
gotta
yet.
have that
We're
one
gonna have
later.
that one in a little bit, so we
We
go
got
off
that
the air
one.
here.
It's the only reason I
We
can't
got a lot of, yeah, exactly. That's the only reason he
Okay.
didn't agree to do this
Okay.
because I told him he could have some Weller single barrel. But
That's
Wild
the
Turkey.
yeah, let's finish it off with Wild Turkey. So here's another fantastic bourbon.
That's a good one.
Yeah, this is a classic. This is easy to
This is
find.
college.
Yeah, well, this was college for you, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't drink this in college. It was either Jack Daniels or Crown Royal for
I've
me.
heard the same thing. I'd be like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, Wild
I
Turkey.
never drank Wild
But
Turkey.
not Wild Turkey 101. Well, just Wild Turkey.
Mine was
Right.
wild. So there's an 81 proof.
Yes.
It's an 81
But-
proof. This
Wild
is
Turkey
101.
101 and Bacardi 151. Those are the two things that I drank in college because
No,
they got
sir.
you drunk quick.
Yeah.
They got you drunk quick. Now I didn't drink no Everclear because I was bougie.
Yes, Everclear. Like say when I was in college, it was Harry Buffalo.
No.
Now, what is
It
a
was,
Harry
uh,
Buffalo
no.
exactly?
Harry Buffalo
'Cause I'm
was
curious.
Everclear and Kool-Aid basically.
No, I know what that is. That's
And it was
trash.
put in a big. I was in a fraternity,
in a pool.
and
Basically.
it was just basically in a. Well, it was a trash can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we put ours
Did
in
they
a
put the
pool.
fruit in there? The
What?
fruit in the trash can?
No, it was just basically
No, no, no.
Kool-Aid and
Oh, okay.
Everclear, and it was a trash can, and yeah,
No, I drink mine from those
Okay.
plastic pools at Walmart.
Okay, that
But
The
it's
kiddie
because,
pools.
but it's because they were cheaper than the trash cans.
Unbelievable. I'm not surprised.
well, now I think about it, I'm like, we were drinking out of a trash can. So I don't even know. Like, you know.
Look, I drink keg beer from a trash can.
What do you think of the smell on this one,
I
guys?
love,
Oh.
you know, it's a little.
Now this one's not weeded. This one has rye.
Right,
in it.
it's
So
a
this one's
more
going to be different.
harsh-
This one's going to be a little bit harsher.
It's a little harsh.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
I don't know. Depends. Listen,
We are not in Kansas.
We
We've
are
never
not
been
in Kansas. We are.
I'll drink in Kansas because it's
They
cold.
make bourbon in Kansas
It's
because it's not
cold
alive.
Yes.
It's
Yeah, it's
cold
cold in
there,
Kansas.
and if you're cold, whiskey's the way to get around that. I'm telling
I'm
you.
definitely not cold right now. Oh, I feel the bite on that.
That is so good.
Right, because if you drink that right after you drink the Weller,
Mhm.
you really get the bite on the end of that. That's
It almost tastes like that green apple though, because
because of the
that
bite, because of that rye.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
That's-
people don't
I
realize.
would really like.
When
Their
you say
rye is
something,
really good too.
when you say something tastes green, to me it tastes like green apple.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste like
Not new or
grass.
not young or grass. It
It
tastes,
tastes like apple.
green
and
apple.
That's
Really?
why, that's
Oh,
why
that's
Nelson's
awesome.
Greenbrier.
Now,
smells
Greenbrier,
like apple.
grass. Greenbrier, I think grass.
Yeah,
Yes.
But that tastes like green apple to me.
this one more so than the
Even more
than
than
the Woodford,
your
than the
your
apple,
Woodford.
than the cinnamon toast crunch. The
Had-
apple cinnamon toast crunch.
I
Had
would
we
say
had
yes.
the weeded before
Really?
that, I think
You don't know.
it would have been even different. More different.
Isn't it amazing how you can drink something in a particular order and it can really change
Oh,
how something else follows it up
We find that out at Whiskey University when we're doing those
all the
12,
time.
those 12 different tastings, and you go, boy, this really tastes different. And then you come back later and you go,
And it
let's,
tastes nothing
let's
like the
try
way you
that
remember it.
one thing, and it
Yeah,
doesn't
right.
taste anything like it.
And you scratch your head and you say, well, was I just wasted when we did that? I mean, I don't think I was, but maybe I was.
But it's
maybe they didn't
because
taste anything like
Your
that.
palate has just
Changed so
acclimated
much.
to itself
Absolutely.
and differences. So it's really unique. I love this though.
Wild
This is-
Turkey 101
Classic.
is a classic bourbon, and
And it's not, I mean, it's what, 29?
it's
Oh,
maybe
yeah, if
30
you-
bucks.
If you
If
no,
that.
it's cheaper than that. It's $20
Is it 20 bucks?
for a
Maybe 20
750.
bucks, yeah.
It's $20.
What I want?
For a 750, it's about $20. 22 maybe. In most places. Now I don't know about Nashville,
Well,
I was
yeah.
going to say, and I think I read this about 29. I'm pretty sure, but
but it's
it's
great stuff.
It's
I
a
mean,
great
anything
bourbon.
Wild Turkey, the Russell's Reserve 10-year-old,
Yeah, that's
the
good.
Long Branch is good.
Mhm.
Just about anything
Rare
Wild
Breed.
Turkey, Rare Breed, Kentucky Spirit,
Mhm.
which is their single barrel, is fantastic at $50.
Yeah,
You can't beat it.
yeah, right.
So then you bring up the Long Branch, which is actually almost like a Tennessee whiskey
Because it's
because it's filtered over
mesquite charcoal.
mesquite charcoal.
Really?
Yep, Matthew McConaughey had a big
After,
say after it's right before it's barreled, actually,
Right.
isn't it? Or before it's bottled.
before it's
Before
bottled.
it's bottled.
It's,
So after it's barreled, and then they dump it over
They
it right
pour it.
before they bottle it. Yes.
over mesquite charcoal.
And Matthew McConaughey actually he partnered with Eddie Russell, which is Jimmy Russell's son. So Jimmy Russell is I guess Jimmy's still the master distiller?
No.
Or who is the master distiller of Wild Turkey now? It's got to be
it's
Eddie,
gotta be
right?
at this
So
point.
anyway, Jimmy Russell still has a big say. So yeah, he's pretty old. He's the Buddha. He's the Buddha of bourbon.
Yeah.
100%. He's the
Didn't
Buddha of bourbon.
did we say he was like 90 something? Like,
He's old.
He's pretty
But
old, man.
Matthew McConaughey is the only person with his signature on a bottle that is not a master distiller.
wow.
Or
Oh,
has
I didn't
never
know
been a master
that.
distiller.
Shut up! I did not know
The
that.
only person to ever have his signature on a bottle of bourbon that's not been a master distiller is
Matthew McConaughey, and then Eddie Russell's signature's on it, but you know whose signature's not on it?
Is Jim.
It's Jimmy. Jimmy didn't want to mess with it. So anyway, that's a great story. And if you
Yeah.
like Long Branch, that's
If you like
awesome.
Matthew McConaughey.
And if you like Matthew McConaughey,
He's
great.
done some good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Can't say anything bad.
All right.
All right. And you want to
Yeah.
buy a Lincoln. So
All right.
love his Lincoln commercials. All right, so we went over only about 20 minutes. I guess that's not bad. I wasn't sure if we were gonna
This has been terrific.
Oh, great.
Thanks,
I
man.
hope that there's actually still some people that are
Yeah,
watching.
right. I know,
Yeah,
We
right?
didn't
least
put anybody
one.
to sleep, at least
We were
one
hoping that
person.
we could be at least interesting.
Yeah,
I think
so-
we did okay.
I think we
I
did
think we've
okay.
been a lot more interesting if we could have given the people some.
We could have given the people some samples or
If they were
something, maybe.
if they were drunk,
If they
we'd
would've
be a lot
came,
more interested.
Yeah. If they would have came, it would have been better. So,
This could go. This could go
drunker you are,
on.
the better we are.
Funny feeling.
what's up, Glenn? What's that?
This could go on all night long. I have a really.
Oh, it
It
could.
could.
It really
It could
could.
go on all night. It could be a train wreck, actually.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I need
think
to bring in
pretty
some. So I need to bring in some of my barbecue smoker people for this one. We go like, yep, we're gonna drink a while, smoke a while, drink a while, smoke a while. This has been great. This has been a fun conversation. I've enjoyed every moment of it, and thank you
good.
for doing this with us tonight.
Absolutely.
It was so, yeah.
And there was not one UT joke. I'm really disappointed.
Well, we can work on that next time. I'll definitely come up with some UT
I'm
jokes.
sorry. Who's talking about my vault?
We had Ole Miss and Alabama. We talked about everybody else. We did not talk about UT. And it's like, oh,
Well, that's
We didn't talk about Vandy either, so
we didn't. We did not.
I've
So
known
anyway, so that gives us food for thought for the next show, I suppose. A place to jump off from. Anchors up.
Sure.
Down. I'm not sure about what that means.
absolutely.
So, guys, this has been great fun. Thank you all
Yeah.
for doing this tonight. And I've learned a lot. Actually, I took notes. I mean, I really did. I took notes.
Oh, good deal.
I have a whole note.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In fact, somebody's taking
I
notes.
think Glenn needs to be here.
Yep. If nobody else is, I am. So, and I'm not even a bourbon drinker. So here you go.
Well, you're going to be after tonight.
Right, I would be. Especially the ones with the apple notes. That's sort of like, okay,
Oh,
now,
man.
and the Weller. So I can, again, I'm a Kentucky boy, so I have to, support my Kentucky stuff.
Absolutely.
The Bourbon Trail's no joke. That's a whole nother story. So anyway, thank you again for being with us, and everyone out there. So thank you for joining us this evening and joining another evening with Community Arts of Bellevue. It's been great having you with us. If you want for more information, I'm going to put it into the chat session really quickly.
Does anybody have any questions before we go that's still on there?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sure, we're still open. So
Well, there's some questions if anybody has any.
But if not, whiskey, you
5
and I
more
be done.
minutes?
I feel like y'all explained it so well. What's left? Here is the website for Community Arts of Bellevue. So if you have any other questions about who we are, what we're doing, what we want, and there's also a link there if you'd like to become a member of Community Arts of Bellevue and support this organization. That's also on the website. And also our schedule for upcoming shows for the next week are always posted on the website. And I feel like there's one more thing. Not sure what it is, but anyway, any information that you need, you can also email me at Glenn@CA. Well, type tonight. You think I've been drinking bourbon all night long? Or
Okay, great.
Freeze.
there we go.
He's back.
My email address. You're welcome to email me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And I think that's wraps us up for this evening, guys. Again, thank you.
Do we have any more bourbon questions? Are we good? No?
I think everybody's good.
We'll leave it open for a moment and see if anything shows up. I'm going to also click through the other rooms.
Do we have any idea how many live viewers we have still?
Glenn.
That's a tricky question on this because I don't know how it doesn't show me how many are on the actual watch party.
Oh, gotcha.
All right.
Okay.
I can see what's
Well, I
coming.
could have 1,000 questions in the Nashville Bourbon Social Club. Yeah. I don't know.
I was gonna say, you may want to check your feed there to see if there's.
Right?
Yep.
See, I'll do that real quick.
I've been checking Community Arts and our Facebook and our group page.
All right. We're still there, man.
we're still there. I don't know if we have any
Look at you.
questions.
Got friend requests and everything.
I already got a friend request.
All right, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go grill me some pork chops.
All right.
Hey,
Sounds great. I'm
Good.
jealous.
we'll be there in a minute.
Come on, come on. I got zucchini and squash and stuff.
Oh boy.
I love to grill. I'm a griller. So
Okay.
y'all come on. Thank you
All
again.
right.
Let's do this. Let's do this in person next time.
Hey,
Yeah.
come over.
It's always better.
Glenn, that's the difference.
Come
I
over
promise you.
anytime, Glenn. Really, seriously.
Sure. I'll come on. I'd love to. I really would.
I'll teach you about some bourbons that are finished in wine. I know you like different wines, so we can do some finished in some different wine casks.
Sounds great. I'm
Yeah.
all for it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, guys, y'all have a great night. Stay safe. Stay well. Do what you got to do. Wear your mask. And have a great evening.
We got it. All right.